Brewing Company. If you had your pick of anybody that was available, would it be somebody other than McDonald at this point? I'm curious how people are feeling. Now we talk about filling out the staff, and those are the big stories. Cliff Kingsbury was supposedly going to be the Raiders guy, and all of a sudden he's going to Washington. Apparently he got an extra year there, is what I was hearing. So, everybody's filling out their staffs. And as we were speaking with Lofa Tatupu last week, literally, I think a couple minutes before we had him on, the news came out that Leslie Frazier was hired by the Seahawks as an assistant head coach. Here's what Lofa had to say about his presence.
I think it's a huge adjustment, putting the staff together, and you just mentioned Frazier. I mean, that's a quality coach right there. And so the first time putting a staff together is the hardest. That's where I think most coaches have a difficult time. McDonald's coached for a while now, even though he is only 36, and he coached with both Harbaughs. So I'm guessing that the network that they have, that he'll be picking their brains, and then you can't hire everybody, right? And so I think there'll be plenty of quality guys that the Harbaughs would like to have hired that they'll be able to point him in the right direction. But I think that's the biggest thing, especially, on the offensive side, finding someone that, he could trust and almost say, hey, you take care of them. And, I'll oversee everything, but, I'm going to spend most of the time with the defense and make sure we get that side right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what the connection there is, because I know that Leslie Frazier, I believe, was with Baltimore in 2014.
Yeah, and he's apparently, all the stories calling him a mentor to McDonald and somebody he holds in very high regard. So
yeah,
good to have that voice, the old school voice on there, the old head, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's 64 years old, Leslie Frazier is, and so he's been around the league for a really long time, and so having him, as kind of a mentor, but I'll be curious to hear from Mike McDonald what he means to him, because everybody has that. I know you talked to Paul Moyer. He really looked up to Tom Catlin because Paul started coaching with him, and there are just certain coaches around the league that you just kind of bond with, and it sounds like that bond happened a while ago, and I think it's good to have that kind of offset, a guy that really has been around the league for a really long time, and it's one thing to know all the trends and everything, but if you actually lived through it and coached through it, and I think Leslie Frazier is going to have a lot of really good advice for Mike McDonald, and a lot of it will probably be, this kind of looks like what we used to run back in the day, and except we called it this and that. And so there's only so many things you can do with the rules as far as formations and shifts and motion and stuff like that. And, it all gets back to just experience and knowing all about, what the NFL has been doing for the last, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, I think that's a great hire. I love the Leslie Frazier hire. We'll see what, his title is assistant head coach. Now, what that means exactly could vary. I don't know what kind of responsibility he's going to have. Maybe he's just a comfortable sounding board, somebody that he can lean on, Coach McDonald can lean on, and, hey, what do you think of this? Because that's a guy who's been through it. He's been a head coach. He's been in this league a long time. We'll see how he fills out the rest of the staff. I mean, the offensive coordinator, I'm very interested to see who that's going to be. We talked about it briefly, I think, on Friday. I wouldn't have minded Cliff Kingsbury as a coordinator.
Yeah.
Don't love his presence as a head coach, but as a coordinator, I wouldn't have minded that. But he's going to go out there with Dan Quinn and that crew in Washington. So we'll see. Is it going to be Ryan Grubb? Is it going to be, there have been a couple other names that aren't as well known that have been floated around out there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see also if Cliff Kingsbury ends up being a head coach again somewhere down the road, because he is fairly young, and you have that experience. You learn a lot from that. I'm sure he did, and mostly it's in the category of what not to do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I wonder if he looked at the film of went back and watched Hard Knocks and was like, I'm not very inspiring. I wouldn't run through a wall for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that's part of it. I think that's the thing they loved about Mike McDonald, is that he knows exactly who he is. He is a young guy, and he's still experiencing, success and failures. But, I feel like he knows who he is. He doesn't try to be someone that he's not. And I think that'll probably come to he'll come to that realization, Cliff Kingsbury, at some point and decide who he is. Maybe he can be a head coach again. But again, there are, look at Eric Bieniemy. I mean, we're still talking about him.
I wouldn't mind him as the OC.
Yeah, I mean, he's run some good offenses, no question about it. So, but I don't know if that fits personality-wise, and it does seem like he's gotten opportunities, and there's something there that we're not getting.
There were complaints when he first got there, right? That he was working the players too hard, or was he yelling at something?
Yeah, there was some language and things like that.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I just remember there was some sort of conflict going on between him and the players. Like he was too rough with them, or maybe it was like I don't know. But
yeah, I remember Jim Mora chasing, who was it? Gosh, I think it was Aaron Curry, and he was chasing him out on the year he was head coach here, and he was yelling at him, and just screaming and yelling, and Curry was just kind of jogging out. I think he was late or something like that. So
was he jogging?
Yeah, he was jogging. So, and we'll get to that later because there's been way too much jogging over at Lumen Field, and we'll figure out how to not do that. But yeah, I mean every coach has their style, and Mora was kind of an old school guy.
509 says, I was a huge, in capital letters, Quinn fan, but after hearing from Mike Macdonald, I couldn't be happier. He sounds like a great fit. I feel like that's true of a lot of people after they heard him. I think there's just maybe if you were skeptical or you had a favorite that wasn't him, I think he won people over with that press conference. It just seemed like, as you said, he's got a very clear idea of who he is. He seems to have a very clear picture of what he wants to do. We'll see if it works. But, I thought the first impression was a great impression.